beginning.
What's your full name?
William Earl Reno, Jr. Have you started it, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've been doing this all this time? Shame on you.
I just let it run.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Springfield, Missouri, June the 4th, 1919. And the address in Springfield, it was Normal. I was born on Normal Avenue. Isn't that unusual?
Well, you're far from normal.
Okay.
Where did you go to school and college?
Well, we moved to Kansas City when I was 5 years old. And my dad was a very poor carpenter. And in 1929, we went to California to make a living. And the state of California bought us tickets and sent us home. They kicked us out of the state. And so then I went to a school called Woodland School. And that's where I told you about my math skills. Then I went to Central High School. I graduated in 1935. Didn't go to college. I went to work for Hallmark Cards. And then the war started. But before the war started, President Roosevelt started a civilian pilot training program. And I decided I wanted to learn how to fly airplanes. So I signed up for the program. And every morning I would get up before work and I would drive over to Liberty, Missouri. And I took my airplane flying lessons. And I got my private pilot license. Emmy was my first pilot, or my first passenger. And she had a lot of courage to go up with me at that time. So then the wars broke out after Pearl Harbor, and I went down and enlisted in the Air Force. I didn't have college at that time, but they started a new program that they would take high school graduates. And so I went into the Air Force. Emmy and I had been friends. We both worked Hallmark Cards, and we'd been friends, and it got more serious, and I asked her to marry me. I owned a 1940 Plymouth automobile. I sold my car and bought her engagement ring with the money, and Emmy always called that her Plymouth Rock. Kind of a cute name for a ring. We planned on getting married after the war, but when I got to Santa Ana, California, I got a little homesick, and I finally talked her into coming out to marry me. And we had a military wedding at Santa Ana, California in 1942. That's many years ago. Emmy followed me around to the various posts. When you learn to fly an airplane in the Army, you have primary training, basic training, advanced training. And you're at each place for 2 months. And so she came out and she would get a job and followed me around from post to post. And I graduated in 1943. The most money I made as working Hallmark Cards was 45 cents an hour. The first month I was an officer, my salary went up to $280 a month.
Wow.
And I used my first month's salary to buy Emmy a imitation fur jacket. And I've got a picture of that.
To start off
Tell
with.
me about being in the war. What was your worst and greatest memory? And what are your hobbies now? What are your hobbies now?
Good. My greatest memory was graduating and becoming a second lieutenant. And they sent me to Reno, Missouri, which is pretty close here, to fly A-20s. An A-20 is a twin-engine bomber. We were in low-level flying, and we were told not to fly over 100 feet around it. And we buzzed everything in the state of Missouri. And we're flying the Missouri River. And as we would come to a little bridge, he would say, "Are you going over this or under it?"
Wow.
So we got to
That's
Jefferson
scary.
City, and he said, "You're going over or under it." and I went under it.
Mm.
And that's probably the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. Probably
Wow.
the most stupid thing I've ever done.
You
in
probably
my
had
life.
feet, literally.
As you know, I was in the Air Force, you know that, and I flew bombers overseas. And as you know, I was shot down and became a prisoner of war. Let's go on. Anyway, we got shot down, and after the Germans took me out of Hungary, we went to several camps. But the Germans didn't know where to put me for some reason. And finally, we got to a place called Stalag Luft 3. Stalag Luft is a German word meaning prison camp for the Air Force. And we had 5 compounds with about 6,000 to 8,000 men in each compound. And the Germans would give us soup, bread, and potatoes, and we lived off of Red Cross parcels. And you'll hear a lot about Red Cross in your lifetime, but she asked me about the worst thing. Okay. On January 27th, 1945, the temperature is about 20 below.
Wow.
Germany's had the worst winter they've ever had. That's on history now. And about 11 o'clock at night, the guards came in and they said, "Ausmachen," which in German means get out. And they told us we had to march.
20 below zero.
We grabbed all of our belongings and we started out. We actually made a bench and we put the stuff on the bench and we were going to tow it. But they took us into a jungle or forest, and so within 10 minutes or so, we all grabbed our own food. We marched for 3 nights and days, and I have no memory of it.
Wow.
I blocked it out completely in my life. I've got books written about it, and I can get all kinds of information. We went back for an anniversary, and my co-pilot told us where we stayed each night. And, I decided after I got out of the Air Force, I wanted to go to college. So I started at the University of Kansas City, which is in town. Went there 3 years, but I wanted to become a CPA. A CPA is a certified public accountant. I almost said something else, but and we do tax
the men that
work.
do taxes.
We prepare income taxes, and we do things like that. Well, in the state of Missouri didn't have the same laws that Kansas had, so I went to the University of Kansas, and I graduated from the University of Kansas in 1947. After that, I practiced public accounting, and didn't really like it because of the income tax work. And I finally met a man who owned a company. And I went to work there in 1957 and stayed with him until 1985. That's where your question is. I retired in 1985.
What company was that?
Peterson Manufacturing Company. We made truck lights. At the time I went to work, we were the world's largest manufacturer of tire pumps. It's interesting that we bought our house, built our first house for $16,000, and our monthly payment was $75.96, and I was making $450 a month because I've been in Leawood for now 63 years, and Leawood is, to me, is probably the best place in this area to live. I hope you agree.